The sciences supporting benefits of presence, mindfulness has an impact on the structure and function of our brain through a process called neuroplasticity. Neuro refers to our neurons, and the plasticity describes our brain's malleability in response to experience. That is, our adult brain can be transformed by experience. Oh, as recently as 25 years ago, we believed that after puberty our brain did not change. Neurons are the basic brain cells that connect with each other at linkages called synapses that help run the structure of the brain. Where we focus on our attention, neurons fire, and where this neural firing happens, we grow connections. In areas without firing neurons, we actually can reduce the number of connections in a process scientists call synaptic pruning. What does this mean for mindfulness? It means that the more we can inhabit a mental state of presence, the more likely the state of brain firing associated with presence will become a trait, a baseline brain activity that will be activated over time. Under pressure, for example, there is a more of chance that we'll be able to inhabit a state of presence since we have trained that state to be our baseline trait. So whether we are being fully present for a conversation or practicing yoga, we can create a states that actually become enduring traits. In other words, we can change our baseline state of a habitual pattern, what we tend to do when on autopilot, from a tendency to mindlessly react to the stronger likelihood that we will able to mindful respond. In this way, we can come to often respond in ways that may be more consistent with what we really want to say or do rather than what it may blurt out without a benefit of consciously choosing our words. More good news, our brain's ability to form a new connections and therefore new habits is possible at any age. Within exponential growth in scientific research, specifically around the way the brain grows with mindfulness practices and their implication for our well-being. What's the process in the brain by which the state of presence can become a trait? The idea is that by practicing mindfulness meditation, as in strengthening our focus and attention and opening our awareness, for example, neurons fire and create a clear and a receptive state of mind. Okay, which when repeated over time can become a trait. Yes, traits occur with the growth of neural connections. The three ways we can strengthen neural connections there are by growing new neurons, at least in the hippocampus, but other areas are still being explored, modifying synaptic connections, and laying down myelin, a sheet that makes communication among interconnected neurons 3,000 times faster and more coordinated. Okay, where attention goes, neural firing flows and the neural connection grows. There's one part of the brain that I'd like to introduce now because it made a powerful difference in how I approach my own mindfulness practice. Default mode network. Okay, given its prominence in self-referential processing, we can think of it as a mini network that links ourselves to our inner and outer worlds. The DMNS circuits, when overactive, not only tend to make us self-preoccupied, but as a part of our social brain, they cause us to compare ourselves to others, even worry about what others think of us. To compare ourselves to others, even worry about what others think of us. Imagine for a moment how activated our mainline default circuits must be when you visit the social media platforms. As discussed above, over time, this intentionally created state of presence can become a baseline trait, a default way of being. Presence means being able to choose how and where to intentionally focus our attention in this moment of present. Sensations or memories of the past or our images about the future. The two cannot exist simultaneously. Of course, distraction can still arise, but over time with the presence, when they do arise, we can more readily bring all our attention back to the present. Remember, mindfulness is not about an empty mind, but a clear mind. Sometimes an overly active and not integrated DMN can make us anxious, depressed, and even lose touch with who we truly are. More moments experienced in the presence means more time as our most resilient self. Direct Walcott articulate this concept beautifully in this poem below. There is nothing inherently troubling about our inner voice or our narrative, however, when it's inflexible or negative, as when we ruminate about the past or worry about the future, it can quickly become our inner critic. Are you your own inner circuit or ally? If you're like many of us, we are both, but leaning closer toward the inner enemy more often than not. One of the hardest challenges for us can be to give ourselves a break when we haven't met expectations, whether those of others or our own. As a result, befriending or softening our inner enemy can be especially hard work. This is where self-compassion comes in. Identifies the core components of self-compassion, which are conceptually distinct but overlap and give rise to one another. Self-kindness, or being understanding with ourselves rather than critical and judgmental. Common humanity, or feeling connected with others, and recognizing the imperfection and difficult or shared parts of our human experience rather than feeling isolated by our shortcomings. 3. Mindfulness, or holding our experiences in awareness rather than avoiding or exaggerating our pain. Here's how the three components may complement each other and are interwoven. The open and accepting stance of mindfulness can assist us in being kind to ourselves by lessening self-judgment. This stance also provides insight so we can recognize our common humanity, realizing that we are all connected and all have challenges. Similarly, self-kindness can lessen the impact of the negative emotional experiences, so it's easier to be mindful them or hold them in our awareness. Furthermore, remembering that we all experience the social failures, personal failures, which are part of being human, helps us lessen self-blame and harsh self-judgment. What I can do is all I can do, and that will be enough. Self-compassion is about being kind, caring, and supportive of ourselves when we are struggling, just as we would take care of a good friend. If you're like most of us, you are a much better friend to others than to yourself. As enough says, if you treated your friends the way you treated yourself, you will have no friends. Uh-huh. Okay. People who practice self-compassion enjoy moderate health benefits, including reacting to stress with low levels of stress hormones and having less anxiety and depression. As Neb points out, increased self-compassion also leads to reduced negative mind states such as shame, suicidal ideation, negative body image, and disordered eating. Likewise, self-compassion is related to enhanced immune function, life satisfaction, happiness, gratitude, self-confidence, and body appreciation. Self-compassion can also be a powerful source of strength, coping, and resilience. One study of divorced couples, for example, found that the most reliable indicator of how they were doing 1 year post-divorce was whether they were a good friend to themselves. Self-compassion was a more predictive of post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD) than the level of combat exposure. So it's not what happens to us, but how we treat ourselves when times are tough. It comes down to whether we are most often our own inner enemy or ally. Perfection does make you feel perfect. It makes you feel inadequate. So why isn't self-compassion valued in our culture? And why is it so hard for us to be our own best friend? You may be thinking that it's more honest and honored to be self-critical. Perhaps you see self-compassion as indulgent, lazy, selfish, self-centered, or weak. What other misgivings do you have about self-compassion? Although we all need to have a realistic sense of our strengths and weaknesses, that's not the same as being hard on ourselves. Think of self-compassion as cultivating an inner strength that will help us every day. We become more resilient by learning to rely on ourselves for encouragement and support, just as we rely on good friends in times of grief and consolidation as well as celebration. For those of you who are curious about how self-compassionate you are, call the self-compassion scale short forms. You may be wondering what the difference between self-compassion and self-esteem. Self-esteem is defined as positive and negative evaluations we hold ourselves or how we feel about ourselves. Self-compassion, on the other hand, has all of the benefit of self-esteem without the drawbacks because it excludes self-criticism and is not linked to social comparison the way self-esteem is. You may be aware that psychologists extol the benefits of self-esteem until recent research linked high self-esteem with narcissism, unstable self-worth, and distorted self-perception. Describes it. Our self-esteem bounces up and down like a ping pong ball based on our latest success or failure. Self-compassion is there for us when we succeed, but it stops in precisely when self-esteem deserts, and that's when we fall or humiliate in some way that isn't there to catch us. Self-compassion is linked with the fewer social comparisons and the less condensed self-worth. Making fewer social comparisons make a come in handy, especially when glimpsed into other sports on the social media or the internet, which increasingly compounds the negative effects of social comparisons. We'll be discussing more in social media later. Between the stimulus and the response there is a space, and thus a space lies our power and our freedom. We can be mindful of all and any aspects of life experiences, including sensation in our bodies, feeling, thinking, singing, smelling, hearing, touching, and tasting. Ideally, presence would permit as many of our moments of as possible, a tall order for sure, but the point is that presence or mindful awareness can become more and more a way of life and a baseline way of being. Research reveals that presence is learnable skill. Remember, it's practice after all. There are two complementary ways to realize this transformative potential of being present and mindful. Formal and informal. Formal practices and have a specified form, including structure and duration. Examples include mindful awareness practices, such as mindfulness meditation, yoga, tai chi, or qigong. Informal practices have no specified form, but are no less important than formal practices. Examples include feeling a rain on your face, being fully present for a conversation with a friend, or catching the sunset and paying attention to nature's slideshow. The informal practices are important in realizing the full transformative potential of presence in our daily lives. Both confident and cheerful. That's how I've already kept myself present. When the feels are present, she describes in a feeling empowered. Burial calls in a brain pleasure seeking machine. As we explains, once we teach the brain that testing calmly in the present feels better than the habitual state of seeing. Then over time the brain will actually want more mindfulness. It turns out that our levels of well-being, resilience, and impulse control can be enhanced. Imagine how refreshing it would be if you could replace your monkey mind in the morning with a more peaceful start such as mindfully drinking a cup of tea, taking a walk, or some other practice that brings you an inner sense of calm. When our brains receive stimuli, they do their job by first sorting all of stimuli that come our way, then looking for the patterns and Finally, constructing categories and concepts in order to make sense of the input based on our previous experiences. This information flow can be called top-down processing, and it often serves us very well. Actively noticing difference is the key presence, and that it is our expertise that gets in the way. One way of understanding this is that our top-down processing means that our minds are filled with memories, stories, experiences from childhood on, which can sometimes imprison us, get in the way of being able to have a fresh look at something. Ironically, the more expert we become, the less we can see because our learning from past experiences and filters our perception. Okay, okay, my eyes feeling so tired, so I should stop here. Okay, good job, Irene.